Thanks for that. So again, welcome everyone. Thanks for joining today's session. We are going to talk about course design. And not just course design, but effective course design. And to do that, before we actually get into course design, we need to definitely spend some time talking about teaching and instructional design. And this is before we actually get into those models of instructional designing as well. Having a distinction will probably clear things up for you. Can somebody turn your mic on and tell me what they think teaching is? Rhonda? Remember, today's session is going to be interactive. Roland, what do you
Telling.
think? Yes. How are you going?
Yes, I would say it's telling. Let's use that one word to.
To tell.
Yeah, you just tell, you stand up and tell.
Right, right. But you stand up and tell. So obviously, you're not telling yourself, right? You're going to
All right.
have an audience.
That's
Yeah.
right.
So let's work with that. So teaching, and to another disclaimer, I'm not going to go too much into definitions, too much definitions. All right. We want to have conversations around those terminologies. So I'm not going to present a full-fledged definition about what teaching is and what instructional design really is. But when you think about teaching, it's definitely that telling that happens in the moment. It's direct interaction between you, the teacher, and the learner. It will include things, that same telling, like explanations. It would include responses to questions, even you questioning the students, and it also requires pivoting, reading the room, trying to find out whether or not what you are telling the students is actually helping them. And if it is not, this is where you're going to pivot. So that's the teaching. Teaching is complex. It happens within an interplay of people within a learning context or learning conditions, right? In a classroom, online, etc. Now, instructional design. Could somebody tell me what instructional design is? I don't need a textbook definition. When you hear instructional design, what comes to mind?
I think about a framework that's comprised with particular learning materials or models or tools
Right.
that you then facilitate through teaching.
Great. Great.
So,
If I
good
can
morning.
add, Javid, sorry,
Yeah,
Pooja.
go ahead.
Yeah, okay. To me, instructional design is some tools with the help of which the students, we are telling what we want them to learn, and they are learning in the process.
All right. Somebody else wanted to say something?
Yes. With teaching, I would say that's the communication piece. You're communicating with someone where you want to pass on some information to that person. The method by which you do it would be more involved in the instructional design, where you're now determining how you're going to pass that information on to the person that you're communicating with.
So is it Marvelet?
Marvelet, yes.
Marvelet, that was marvelous. Thank you so much for that. So you're right. Everybody, you're correct. So we talk about teaching. Instructional design now is the engine or the blueprint for that conversation you're having with your student. All right? It is what will happen before and beneath the teaching. It will focus on, somebody mentioned structures. Somebody also mentioned strategies. So it is going to focus on those things and planned elements that would make a successful session or a successful course. All right, we're talking about courses here. And as part of the success, you're going to have to do before the teaching establish learning outcomes. You're going to be engaged in sequencing content, looking at those type of assessments that will help the students with those assessments. You're going to look at choosing the best method, teaching strategy or instructional method that will help the student not only achieve the requirements for passing that assessment, but also help them attain the learning outcomes set for that course. So we want to think of teaching as a live performance, and instructional design is a blueprint that guides it. Any questions before we move on? No? Okay. So it is still very important to connect the two though, all right? Both are essential. Teaching brings the human connection, instructional design brings the structure. That's all we need to remember. So when you're designing your course, you are engaged in the structure of how you want this successful learning plan to work in the live session. So instructional design is something that we are continuously engaged in. You don't need to be an instructional designer to be doing instructional design. Yeah, instructional designer is easy. You just need to get into it. And I'm guaranteeing you that you will be able to design once you use the tools available to you. So we are continuously engaged in instruction. Uh, Even if you're outside the classroom or outside the academic environment, somebody stops and asks you for directions. Let's bring it back to the academic environment, but not teaching and learning per se. You have a new colleague. She's new to the building, and she's asking you for directions to the washroom. How would you give those instructions or directions, as the case may be? Are you going to use landmarks that you would, if you are giving instructions or directions to somebody who is familiar with the environment already? Yes or no? Yeah? No? Okay, give me a thumbs up, thumbs down.
Can you repeat that? Is you saying if you would
So
give
you have
landmarks?
a new colleague.
Yes,
She's new to the building. First day she shows up for work. She's asking you for directions to the washroom. She's not familiar with the building. First time
right.
ever.
Okay.
Would you give her directions or instructions to get to the washroom in the same way you would do for
Oh,
somebody who's familiar with the building by using
okay.
landmarks?
So no would be my
Or
answer.
right? No. So we always do this. We are always engaged in instructional design. And that's at a very basic level. All right. So as educators, as designers, when we do this in the classroom, we are doing this by refining our practice. So we're doing it without actually some sort of structure. We refining, we improving our teaching strategies. We always looking at the learner needs. We taking the students' feedback into consideration to know what to do the next time you teach a course, or if it is when you have to the next lesson, if you need to revisit the concepts of the previous lesson, contextual changes, all of that you're engaging already as educators. So this means that you are constantly monitoring how your students respond to the teaching. You're going to identify where adjustments are needed. You do that already. You're going to integrate new strategies and technologies. I know you're doing that because sometimes what you try in one class may not necessarily work in another class, even though it's the same topic. So you're going to look for different technologies and learning experience. Um, Essentially, instructional design is this last thing here, a structured approach, best suited for teaching and learning. All right. Any questions before we move? Any questions? I will always ask that most times I'll always ask if you have questions before we move to the next slide. So you can give me a thumbs up, or you can turn your mic on and say yes, no, or ask that question, because I want to make sure we move together.
All good.
All good. Thanks for that, Rhonda. And instructional design, I'm telling you, there are a lot of frameworks to choose from, so many, but we have a short time, and we are not yet to become instructional designers. So, per se, we're not here to get a degree in instructional design, if I should put it like that. So, what I did in planning today's session is focus on two models. Yes, you have the SAM model, the action mapping model, the rapid prototyping model, the Merrill's first principles of instruction, Gagne. Some of you may be familiar with Gagne 9 events of instruction for lesson planning, the Dick and Carey model. All those exist, but I've decided to go with these two, the ADDIE model and the backward design model. So the ADDIE model is, just to give you the context, is one of those earlier models, or old model, and then we have backward design, which is more recent. All right. So to get things going, we are going into a breakout room activity. All right. So we're going to have two groups. And this is what you're going to do. First, I want to make sure that you access the workshop guide. So I'm going to put it back in the chat for those who came after it was posted. I'm giving you about 30 seconds to access this resource. So please click on that link, access the resource. And give me a thumbs up or turn your mic on to let me know that you can access it. Persons did access it before,
Got it.
but I just want to make sure.
Got it.
Nice. Thank you so much. Right. So at the top of that document, somewhere you're going to see the first activity. Correct? We're going to have two breakout rooms. Breakout room 1 and breakout room 2. Breakout room 1, you're going to take the ADDIE framework. Breakout room 2, you're going to take the backward design framework. And both groups are going to explore those two design frameworks. Now, I have links in that document that is going to take you to the resource, so you don't need to go searching all over for information, right? You're going to access that H5P activity. It's a link. You have a hyperlink and you have the link itself in case the hyperlink doesn't work. Thanks for that, Pooja. And once you access the activity, you're going to work together. One person could share their screen, work together, show the contents, and explore the interactive content. You're going to take brief notes. So you're going to have somebody taking notes, or everybody could take notes on the side. And then at the end of almost coming to the close of the session, you want to respond to these questions quickly. You don't need to come to the main session with a full presentation. We can just talk about it. What is the main purpose of the framework? The key steps or components, how you think this framework supports your teaching practice, in what situation you think the model you're assigned to would be useful, and one example of how you think it might help you in your practice. Okay, so we will, Mark, you assign the breakout room. Mark? Hold on for a second.
The rooms are now open.
Okay. Thank you so much. So I was gonna go to the results guide. So you're gonna click to open me. Click to open me. So you should see the invitation to join your room. You click on that. Hey, so welcome back, everyone. How was that session? Fast and Furious?
Session was too short.
Well, it wasn't really meant for you to get too deep into the whole concept or the model, right? I just want you to have an idea of how those two models work because, as I mentioned, there are many more models, and I don't want
Okay.
for you to go too deep into it, and it appears that I am convincing you that these are the models that you should go with. Yeah, but let's hear from you. I want group one to I wouldn't share my screen. I hope you have those guiding questions, or I could call it out for group one. Do you have that person who is going to provide the feedback, or is it anybody from the group? I'll pose the first question for group one. This is the ADDIE framework. What is the main purpose of the ADDIE framework? It's a discussion. Feel free to turn on your camera if you want. Let's have a discussion about this quickly. What is the main purpose? That could be one sentence. The main
I don't
purpose
mind
of
jumping in, and then the
yeah,
other group members could chime in.
yeah.
We discussed that we believe it's to provide a framework for developing educational products.
Mm-hmm.
However, it's about keeping the student at the center of what we do.
Nice. You are correct. So in the first stage where you analyze, it's really and truly taken according to AI, a deep dive into the learning context. So you're going to define, you're going to clearly state who those learners are. And by defining the learners or analyzing the learners, you will have to drill down into a lot of the areas making up that learner. The demographics, the age, male, females, ratio, that's when you have a predefined audience. What are the key steps or components? You can just list it out. ADDIE.
Analyze, design, develop, implement, and evaluate.
Okay, evaluate. And you want to say something about the evaluation stage or phase? Do you think it's just at the end only?
Well, just like teaching where we have the formative and summative, I guess that would apply. So throughout the process, as you are going through for the implementation stage, you have to go, revisit certain things. So evaluation would be progressive.
Right.
And
Good.
then you evaluate towards the end, that summative evaluation piece that would come in at the very end.
You explained it better than me. I'm going with that, and I agree with that. Thanks so much for that. I don't need to say anything else there. But to group one, how you think? Somebody wanted to say something?
No, I thought diagnostic was in there somewhere.
Diagnostic? Well,
Analysis.
diagnostic is more the assessment, is more on the assessment, but we're talking about evaluation, where you evaluate
At the
your
end of it.
Design.
value judgment on what you're doing throughout the process, throughout the cycle, right? So yes, the diagnostic assessment will be part of the whole
Analysis.
inside the activity itself, inside the ADDIE model cycle itself, right? Where you would want to know where learners are and where you need to take them, right? But in the model itself, evaluation is where you're evaluating everything as you go, in each step as you go. And then the final as is Miss Marvelous, sorry.
Yeah.
I hope you don't mind. Miss
Yeah, I love
Marvelous
that. I love that. I
mentioned
love that.
that I love where she used the formative and the summative to illustrate that. So how do you think this framework will help you in your teaching, group one? Anybody? or how you think it will not?
I came in late to the discussion because I had some difficulty
That's
getting into
okay.
the group. You remember you helped me to get in the group.
Of course.
But I heard someone say when I got in that she was using this all her life.
Right.
And maybe she was want to expand on that, the person who said that.
Hi, Roland. Hi, everyone. No, I was sharing that I have been using ADDIE for decades, since first introduced as a form of instructional design. I find it to be extremely effective.
Okay.
Also, so I regard it as a legacy framework. I heard you say an older model. I would say a legacy framework. And definitely, even in using it, the backward design could also be used, because I agree with that. Start with the end in mind, right? So I believe both could be married, actually. But in terms of some of the downsides, and this is probably answering some of the later questions Antia and others were talking about, is it inflexible as they're painting it? And we didn't feel that it was. So
Okay.
I suppose maybe it's the level of experience in using the model that we know it can be very much adapted to the needs of the student and the purpose of the lesson or the learning at the time, even with
Thank you
the
so much.
digital consideration.
Yes, that is so true. And for group one, let's go straight to the last question, because you sort of mentioned where you think the framework would be most useful in a way by not really mentioning it entirely, but I get the idea. What is one example of how you might apply this framework in your practice? One example. Think of the first stage. I'm sure you went through the first stage. How you think that first step will apply to your teaching practice? Analysis. So you have a course that you're going to design. You know it's for students in an undergrad program. How you think that information, building on that information, is going to help you design your course?
I think sometimes we're caught up in the material, looking at objectives within the material. Whereas if you do what this ADDIE is suggesting and you put the student at the center and you do an analysis and you say, who are these students? Where are they coming from? How am I going to increase engagement within these students? What is going to make them engage? When you get into those kinds of questions and think about the student and let the student drive the process, I think that's where benefits can be incurred.
That's it.
That's it. So
we
see this. Go ahead.
Hi, Javed.
Yes.
I am not group one. Might I jump in here a little bit?
Of course.
To add to Lisa.
Lisa,
I have a slightly different approach. And yes, we always have to think of the student, keeping the student in mind. But I was thinking, let's just say we are designing a course for specialized training. What do the market forces, what do they desire, the particular company? And so we as the course designers can say we have course X to offer. And this is what is necessary, is needed to deliver the course. So rather than go to the student first and say, well, what would you like? We are saying, when you're designing the course, you start at the end, you say, okay, these are the particular outcomes we want. This is what we want to have happen. Now, then we will go to the student and we start to think in terms of who are the students that would be coming to, and let's say UWI Tech, who are the students? What might they be given to? And we always have to be careful that we don't dumb down maybe or bend too much to accommodate. I saw a video just the other day with a professor from actually, I think it was Harvard, and that person was saying, listen, the students have to understand that it's a process they have to go through and not just the product. So the process will come in when we think in terms of the outcomes. These are the outcomes. Now we have the students. Okay, students, tell us how best, or not so much tell us, but we are to engage with the students in such a manner that we have an idea of their learning styles, what they might be given to, what is happening out there. So just slightly different from Lisa. I'm agreeing with her. Yes, we have to engage the students, but I'm saying first of all that we have to decide this is what the course, this is what entails. This is what it entails. You need to have X and Y in order to become a physician. You need to have X and Y in order to be a surgeon. You can't just be a doctor and then jump to surgeon. So this is why I'm saying there are certain things that must remain in the domain of the person who's designing the course. Yeah.
Okay. So those are very valuable contributions, and we can have a discussion for the entire session based on how we design courses. But this is why there are different frameworks for you to choose from as well. So we have existing. I'm seeing in Lisa's contribution the legacy framework. As someone mentioned, it's a legacy framework. I think the legacy framework has its value, as well as the method that Michelle mentioned. So at the end of it all, what is very important, and I'll get to that in a short bit, is that we have a clear direction of using one particular model to take us throughout the course design process. And it's not just designing based on feelings or designing based on how you learned and what you experience and you think that's the best way. So let's go to group 2, backward design. Sorry that I have to ask group 2 to rush through their contributions, but we are pressed for time. What is the main purpose of the backward design framework, group 2?
Well, I took up time in that first one, so somebody else from group 2 needs to say something.
So group 2. What's the main purpose? Think about it. So we have the ADDIE model, ADDIE, 5 steps. And now we have the backward design framework. How many steps? Group 2, how many steps?
We have, is it start at the end, think, assessment, and then strategize?
Awesome. Three big questions. All right?
3 steps.
3 steps. If we want to put it like that, 3 steps, 3 phases, 3 big questions. So what do you think, based on knowing that already? 1 is 5, 1 is 3. What do you think the main purpose of that framework would be?
It's
There's no
Peter
wrong
here.
or right. Say that again?
This is Peter.
Peter. Hey, Peter.
I would say the main objective is to identify where the end of the roadmap is in terms of what the student is required to achieve and be able to use at the end of the session or whatever class you have.
I'm taking that. So the main purpose is to start the design with the end in mind. Where you want your students, as Peter is mentioning, where you want them to be, what you want them to be able to do at the end of the course. All right. And those components, Michelle stated it just now, so I'm going to ask that. How you think this framework will support your teaching? Michelle already in her contribution in the ADDIE model did indicate some of how that framework, she was speaking to backward design a little bit, but marrying a little bit of the ADDIE model. But if anybody else in the group wants to say exactly how you think the framework would support their teaching, feel free to respond. No?
All right. May I say this based on what I got from it? All right. Starting with the video, with the backward design framework, it's with creating the objectives, creating the assessments, and the learning activities, right? It points out that in doing these are not necessarily sequential. They are interrelated. So to a large extent to create a more intentional or more effective learning aligned with certain experiences by starting really with the ending goal. And then really figuring out how to assess if students achieve, and then finally plan the learning activities and the content.
Well, today's session is based on all of what you just mentioned there in terms of making or designing effective courses.
Yeah.
So we will get to that for sure. But yeah, so if you have to use that framework, you are saying that the framework will support effective course planning if you keep those three things that you mentioned aligned.
Right.
Yeah. And okay, one last question. What is one way you might apply this framework in your course design practice? One way. So you have your HOD. We're gonna move on quickly, but your HOD came to you and comes to you and asking for you to create a course by the end of the week. That's not realistic, but by the end of the week, how do you think this framework will help?
Start, as you said, start with the end in mind. Wait, let me see if I'm on.
Yeah, it gives you a clear starting point, and it is
start with the end in mind.
Yeah. Starting with the end in mind. Let me share my screen again.
Wait, I don't have. Wait. Where am I? I'm lost.
All right, so just to quickly mention these two blueprint models. All right, one is forward facing as the ADDIE model. The other one is a backward moving sequence. And let's talk about design time when compared to the both. The ADDIE model is certainly a more rigid, time-consuming model when compared to the backward design model. All right, so the backward design model can be done in a very short time, and it's easier to adapt even after the course design stage comes to a close. All right, whereas the ADDIE model, it takes some time to go back and make changes. All right. And we can't have this discussion or this session without mentioning AI. We can't. All right. And this is UWI's position here. I'm going to read it. I'm not really a fan of reading off the slides, but in this case, I want you all to know that this is UWI's position where they support the responsible use of AI in all of its activities, provided that such use is appropriate for its context and that it is aligned with the university core values. All right. And as part of the policy document, I went in and I extracted this section as it pertains to teaching itself, teaching and learning, where the position is that all courses should have a clear statement. So you're designing your course, you should have a clear statement of its acceptable use for your students. It must be tailored to the learning outcomes, and it must be consistent with the overall university AI policy framework. So while you remain consistent with the learning outcomes, making sure it is helping them achieve learning outcomes, you want to make sure that you stay aligned to the policy framework. So I'm telling you here that you should get your hands on the policy framework. It is in the document that I shared. There's a link taking you to it. Just go through that document so you would be aware. And the last thing I want to mention is that no program completely shuns the use of AI across all its courses. So we support it. And as part of supporting it in your course design, you should think about how you are going to support the use of AI. As a teacher, as a course designer as well, you have three options. You can, and the first one is easy. No use. You can't use it. It's prohibited. If students use it, it's treated as a breach of integrity under the plagiarism or the university assessment regulations. Okay? Option 2, you fully endorse it. Students, you are free to use it anytime, anywhere throughout the course. But you must have you must state that clearly, and you should have a declaration and statement as well, where students must cite the AI tool that they're using, the prompting process, and provide references. And the last option, which is the widely used option, partial use. And again, you have to be very clear with this. You're permitting use of it in all of your assignments, some of your assignments, one assignment. You need to state that. And so while designing your course and you're looking at your assessments, you will know that you are actually allowing students to use AI. So you are designing your assessment to accommodate this. Yeah. And if using this, you should let students complete this declaration statement. I took a screenshot of it. It's looking a little blurry on my end, but it's the declaration statement. If you haven't seen it, this is it. It's in the document. There's a link to the statement in that document. So you have students indicate the name of the tool, etc., how to use it, and all of that. Any questions before we move on?
Javed, I have a question.
Yes. We press for time, but yes.
So the easiest thing to do is to shun the AI, right?
The easiest thing to do is?
The easiest thing to do is to shun the AI and say it's totally not allowed. But the truth of the matter is AI is there and it's becoming more and more present.
You think that's the easiest thing to do, too? I think it's harder.
It doesn't behoove us to figure out a way to utilize it properly within the course. And if that is the case, when are we getting courses to talk to us about how to use AI, both as lecturers and students?
So we have a number of workshops, and in almost all of our workshops, well, my workshops, I do mention the use of AI. So it's not a full-fledged workshop on AI itself. Dr. Hill, he ran a couple workshops on assessment as well, and he did speak about the use of AI to design assessments and all the aspects. We have some podcasts as well. So we have training in different places for you to access. It's something that's integrated into our workshop framework. So, but if it is you think that you need something particular regarding AI, you can always send us an email and we'll see if we could direct you to training. I've posted in our teaching and learning community a number of resources, courses or tutorials that you can go to learn how to use AI in teaching. So it's specifically for teaching because AI is in everything basically. But these resources have guided persons too. So we have things there. I hope I answered your question.
Yes. Javed, I want to make a plug for this, because AI is a gigantic mess for us.
Okay.
And not having workshops that are totally geared towards AI, I think is a mistake.
Okay.
And I repeat my plea, not just for lecturers, but for students as well.
Okay, no problem. Noted, and we'll take note of that and consider it in our next
Yes,
planning
Javed,
phase.
I concur. Because I'm learning something here. I like, and I guess this is what the workshop is about, but we really need it for lecturers as well as students. So yes.
No problem.
Yeah.
I appreciate this feedback. It's recorded as well, so we have to act on it. I will take it to my boss, Dr. Hill. But we have to move on. I don't want to keep you all longer than promised. And activity 2. So you're going back into another activity. And you're going to look at that handout, the same handout. Mark, could you just put the link in the chat again for those who came after I last posted it, for those to access the handout? So you're going to go back into your same groups. and you're going to work on what I call an AI-assisted course design template. So you're kind of going to be getting some training here with AI. Now, in the last group session, one person shared their screen. So I'm asking for one person again to share their screen, and that person, I'm asking if they are able to, if they have competence or experience with using any of those AI tools like ChatGPT. I'm just going to say ChatGPT to keep things simple. So you can switch between the document and the AI tool. And I will, Mark and myself, we would be in those sessions to help you as well. I want you to use AI throughout this activity. Anywhere you feel like you want to use it. In the document, there are some hints for you, and those hints will give you an idea of the prompts that you would need to enter, so you can copy and paste. You can give AI at the onset, give AI the context. I'm using a template. Upload the template in AI as well. Upload the entire template and tell AI, I'm using this template to design so-and-so. All right? The idea, the goal is to demonstrate effective course design and not subject matter mastery. So keep that in mind. And you have group 1 would have a topic and group 2 will have another topic. Let me just pull up that document so you don't get confused. So here we have the activity. All right, you may use AI anywhere. Stated that. Each group will briefly share. So you're gonna come back in the presentation to the main session and talk about these things. Well, at least have that in mind. But the main thing you're going to do is complete this document here. Access the template. You're going to populate that template. Group 1, that's the group who did ADDIE. Your topic would be the art and science of Trinity levels. That's the course you're going to design. The art and science of Trinity levels. And in that document, you have some ideas. In this document, you have some ideas, possible things that you want to include in case you're stuck for ideas. And in group 2, you're going to design a course on Trinity, tradition, technique, and transformation, or just Trinity. You feel free. It's not about content here, but it's the process. All right. Any questions
Should
before
we
we
use
move
a
into the groups?
respective, yes, question. Should we use the respective models?
The template itself is designed to draw on aspects of both models.
Both models, all right.
Yeah. All right. So as I mentioned in the early part of the presentation of the session, I'm not here to convince you to use a particular model. I want to show you that the course design process is so dynamic that you can draw on aspects of different models to make an effective course, to design an effective course. So, Mark, opened the rooms already and join the room. I will take, which room you want to join, Mark? Okay. I'll just go into the Trini doubles room. Mark is a roti guru. He will take the Trini roti. All right, so person's joined. Nice. I'll take a sip of coffee before. Now you all can tell me what that experience was like.
I think for safety, they should probably just use an emoji.
Yeah.
Grueling.
Grueling.
Javed,
All right, Miss
Javed,
Marvelous. Yes.
is this Did we do you something to
Oh boy.
you want to punish us?
No, 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 no.
I mean, you
So
know, but I thoroughly enjoy this session. For
I
me,
appreciate that.
something like this needs to be face to face, but I mean, we understand
Yeah, the constraint.
why we are here. So at least we
Yeah.
have an idea.
So,
Mhm.
let me just explain one thing. We press for time. We really press for time.
Mhm.
There's no way I can cover all aspects of effective course design and have you be able to do something meaningful in this short time other than what I am going to go through now. All right? Now, the other thing I want to mention is that when you're doing something new or something for the first time, there's something called grappling. You grapple with it, and you must go through that frustration stage. And you know, when you get past that frustration, you are going to definitely experience relief and joy in what you're doing. So that e- exercise for some of you would have been causing frustration, and that is not necessarily a bad thing. All right. What it is telling you is that, listen, you need to be able to do certain things to be able to accomplish what you need to accomplish. And now your students, they go through the same experience as well sometimes, especially when learning something new. They've never experienced it before. So I am not going to ask you all to share your course design or what you all would have worked on, but I did mention in the breakout rooms, I did send some broadcast messages, sorry, letting you all know, don't overthink it, letting you all know to pay attention to the hints, because those hints will guide your prompting in AI. And I'm sure some of you now know that it is crucial. It is very, very important to give AI proper prompts or effective prompts and contextualize what you are going to ask for or what you're trying to achieve. I'm sure of that. I also learned that it is also very important to say or ask in 3 prompts rather than 10 prompts. Yeah? All right. And with that said, I'm going into the presentation for today.
Just a quick Javier, before you
Yeah,
move on. I
Dr.
know you're pressed with time, but
Yes.
I didn't know that Lisa and someone else. We should correct the perception that we're not focusing on AI focus areas. So we do have in our plan. If you follow our events calendar, then you will see a number of AI. And given our constraints, we do have plans. We still have plans to have AI support. And we've started this since 2023. If you go to our YouTube channel, you'll see some videos that you can. So if you do need some foundational aspect, and our plan and our strategy is to really integrate it in everything that we do. So in addition to that, in teaching week, our teaching week is AI focus, which is in March. So I just want to let you guys know that. I don't want to give
Thanks so
little
much for that
perception that
reminder,
we're not.
Dr. I forgot about that. Thanks so much for
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. So I just wanted to put a plug in for that. All right.
Yeah.
Thanks, Javier.
Our website too, Dr. Hill, is a really good place for persons to start. All right. You could check our website. There's information on AI there, and you can just, take it into your own hands as it may be for more easier for you then. So I want to get directly into it. And while designing or taking part in that activity just now, this is one of the concepts built into that template, constructive alignment. And it was at the end of the document you realize that it all came together, all right? Where you need to ensure that your learning outcomes, your assessment, and your instructional strategies, there was a matrix for you and a checklist to ensure that they are all aligned. Now, constructive alignment, I'm going to be moving fast here. Forgive me. but I want for you all to have a good understanding of this constructive alignment concept. It's an idea that all key components, these key components of teaching and learning should work together in a coherent and intentional way. So while designing your effective courses, you have your course outcomes, your learning outcomes. And this would be asking this question: what will my students be able to do, know, or value at the end of the course? And that now will guide your assessments. How will students demonstrate what they have learned? Or how would students demonstrate that they have attained these learning outcomes? And then you move to the instructional strategies. What sort of experiences that I would now create or use to help my students achieve be successful at the assessment? And of course, if they're achieving the goals of the assessment or passing the assessment, they more than likely will be achieving the learning outcomes. So you want to always keep these three things aligned, and that's key. At Settle, when reviewing those course proposals, this is one of the things that the unit is going to look for. They're going to look for that alignment. All right, so I want for you to pay attention to that when designing, because look what can happen here. Now, imagine you have a course and you want students to apply analytical skills, but then the assessment is a multiple choice test where you're only testing on recall. How you think your students will feel? So, and in the delivery of the course, those activities were all about developing analytical skills, but now the assessment is this low-level recall. And now on the flip side, just flip the scenario where everything, all the strategies is aligned to factual or recall, being able to recall information. But in the final assessment now, you have students, you're testing them in a way that they need to apply analytical skills. That's unfair, and this is what we want to discourage. We want to make sure that it is aligned. We don't want this misalignment at all. So as it relates to constructive alignment, balance is key. And in balancing those responsibilities, think about the time that you or the teacher, the facilitator, would be engaged in while meeting those learning outcomes, you and the students, the teachers and the students would spend achieving those learning outcomes, working on those assessments, and taking part in those instructional strategies. Make sure it is realistic. Take into consideration that your students may not just be doing your one course, or if it's adults working already, going to a class is not the only thing they have going on in their life. So you want to really and truly spend some time while keeping things aligned, distribute time wisely, but use your strengths and be adventurous. Draw on the things that you're comfortable with, but engage in new learnings, new tools and technologies, AI tools, etc. I want you to just read this for like 10 seconds. Have you ever walked out of a class or a Settle training, wondering what exactly was I supposed to learn from that? I hope that's not the case today. And if you have done that, then you're definitely not alone, because I myself walked out of class sessions, undergrad sessions, and I'm like, what was I supposed to really learn? Now, this uncertainty definitely comes from the lack of clarity of, or even the misunderstanding between learning objectives and learning outcomes. So we use it interchangeably, but they are not the same. I want to keep this very short. Think of learning objectives as the topics that the instructor is going to cover.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. It is what, and it is yes, while it is specific, it is still narrow. It focuses on the teacher itself. So it's teacher-centered. It's telling teacher what they're supposed to do. But the learning outcomes now is what your students have to demonstrate. What would they achieve? It is also measurable. And this is what I want for us to focus on when creating those effective courses. Look at your learning outcomes in such a way that you start from what you want students to be able to do, but it must also be part of a bigger picture. You are going to make sure it is aligned to, just like in those Russian dolls, it's like fitting into each other. The learning outcomes is a part of the program outcomes. It's not a feeling that you feel like students should be able to demonstrate at the end of the course. No, it must be aligned to the program outcomes. And of course, these program outcomes is part of a bigger picture, the degree or the state level expectations. And that is, in our case, it could be the undergrad or the postgrad level expectations, the ideal graduate attributes, all of that. Any questions here? So it's not created in a vacuum. So in writing your learning outcomes, you want to start with a statement. And this is what the statement is really in most cases. Successful students, or at the end of the session, students, I have seen in many cases, will be able to. Personally, I don't like that word will because I'm making a promise that after doing the course, students will. But that's not the case all the time. I prefer to use the word should. Based on my design, they should be able to. I can't account for
Student or even would, yeah.
Yeah.
Because that still
Yeah,
leaves
or
the
would,
condition.
yes, would,
Yeah.
yeah.
And that still leaves the condition because it depends on student input as well as teacher delivery kind of thing. So yeah.
Yes,
Would.
yes. So you start with the statement, then you use an action verb. And in this case, the example is write a restaurant critique. And then that verb should be aligned to some kind of standard. Something that's measurable. Using a critiquing guideline provided by so and so, so and so. Right? So here, I mean, I'm not here, it's not a learning outcomes workshop, but I'm just giving you the idea. And this was in the document, the Bloom's taxonomy. It was in the document for you to use as a prompt, to give AI the prompt when creating your learning outcomes for your course, to use Bloom's taxonomy. You had a link with all the all the verbs to upload in AI to help you create those learning outcomes. Now, Bloom's taxonomy is just one framework to use. Bloom's taxonomy, quickly here, is all about the cognitive aspect of learning, the cognitive domain. So what Bloom did here is stratified thinking skills into this pyramid where remembering is at the lowest level, and as you move up, you're achieving high order thinking skills. So at the very lowest level of thinking, he has some verbs here. They have some verbs here. Things like, which is more recall, remember, classify, describe, define, etc. But you don't want to stay here all the time. You want to gradually move up so your students will achieve high order thinking skills. Most times, personally, I don't focus on the low level. I start from application one time. Because in order for me, this is my method, right? In order for them to apply some type of information or something or skill, they must be able to at least understand something, some
But
information.
Javed, that's the
Yeah.
thing. How do people understand?
Right.
And
So you're not
what
going
do
to
they understand?
measure. Right. So very good. Thanks for that. You're not measuring understand, but what you're going to do is measure whether or not students can classify. So you're going to stick to these verbs, not the categories. You're going to use these verbs. Classify, describe, discuss, identify. So while building the course out the course, I would include activities for them to be able to do these things. Recognize, locate, select, all of that. Yeah? And I know where you're going. You're going to this. You're talking about things that cannot really be measured. It's hard to measure. And these are some of the words to avoid. So you see an understanding of here. You're so right. You can't really measure understanding. So you want to refrain from using some of these words. How would you believe? How you know students believe? How you know students feel a certain way? Are you guaranteed that they are feeling a certain way by looking at them? You know? So again, this is not a learning outcome session, but we have to be intentional when crafting our learning outcomes, because if your learning outcomes are misaligned, or it's not well, or it's unclear and it's not well crafted, it is going to cause your course to be ineffective.
And Javed, if I may, I
Yes,
would also stress here we often see demonstrate. So because we mentioned people should be able to apply and demonstrate the observable evidence, they often sometimes put in the word demonstrate, understanding, demonstrate, and that
Demonstrate an
itself.
understanding of, yeah. No.
That's not good.
No.
Correct.
No.
Demonstrate here. So it's like, say, let me see what you understand, how you understand it, you know? So do something that would
Yes,
show that.
exactly.
How they're going to demonstrate. You have to be very clear in how they're going to
Yes.
demonstrate. You have to put conditions. All right. But again, this is not a learning outcomes
Close
workshop.
workshop.
We can have Dr. Jones is the guru in learning outcomes. She runs that workshop.
Javed, I like you. I like that.
She is the guru. So she's the person to go to, and I'm telling you, under her guidance, you will be proficient in crafting effective learning outcomes. Now when it comes to modalities, this is very, very important as well. And it's important as part of your course design to take into consideration UE in particular, modalities. All right, this is on our website. I have that information in the guide at the bottom of the document. You will see the link taking you to our website. This is a screenshot of what is exactly on our website. So basically, you have face-to-face, blended, online. For courses, this is modalities at the course level. And if you notice, again, I can't spend too much time on this, but if you notice here, we want to look at what's existing already, what has been approved. You have your courses that's already approved, and in most cases, it's not approved for fully online. But here, in this case, you can use this modality, face-to-face, flex, or web enhanced. The key thing to note is that this delivery should be less than 12 contact hours in the online space. All right? And if the moment you cross 12, you have to seek approval. And that is what is going to take it now to either blended or fully online. Okay? I can't say too much on this, but be conscious of the modality, because the modality as well is going to affect the way you deliver, craft your assessment and your instructional strategies.
So Javed, you mentioned the 12 credits. So as long as it's 12 credits, it becomes blended.
Less than 12 contact hours. Less than 12. Yeah.
Yeah.
Less than 12. The moment you cross The moment you cross, you're ending up here. You have to seek approval. Any questions there, Doctor?
Yeah, I was just saying that so persons be clear that once they want to identify as blend, it's very flexible, at least 1 credit, which is 12 hours. And the blend that gives you a lot of flexibility. But we know that there are persons who are quite knowledgeable in saying, okay, no, I'm using a lot of stuff on my learning and stuff, and this is where we say, no problem. We don't want you to come to us and seeking approval. You're using it. Just ensure that you're not making it a blended course by having the 12 hours within having the students do too much. Sometimes we have to remember the student workload. So
Right,
thanks
and
for
it's
bringing that up.
notional hours. And from my understanding, Dr. Lee could help me here, because you're the expert with this. The notional hours would be those the hours spent on learning tasks. That's the easy way for me to explain it. Assessments now. So you have your learning outcomes, and you want to move into assessment. We have 3 definitions here, but I'm just gonna let you know that these 3 definitions, they have one thing in common. You seen it bolded there? They all seek to improve student learning. Do you design your assessments in a way to help students improve their learning? Or is it that we design assessments in a way that we want to always test them to see how much they know? We want to always look at how much they could recall. Is that recall really and truly helping them improve on their performance? I don't know. You ask yourself that question. So these are some definitions that I like, and I've posted it here. You can take a screenshot. But when it comes to designing your course, you have to think about things to assess. What are you going to assess? So these are some hints here for you. You want to think about the learning context. Focus on what the students should be able to do at the end of the course. All right. Now, I like that. Personally, I like that because I don't want for my students to come to my course, spend an entire semester, and then graduate, go out into the world of work, and they can't do anything related to my course. All right, and then we are seeing some of that happening in the real world, and persons may think that the solution to that is internship. Not necessarily. It can begin from the moment you start designing your courses, where you intentionally focus on what you want your students to be able to do as it pertains to your course. All right, and we'll get to some of that a little bit as we go through assessment. And we did mention avoid vague or passive language, things that are hard to measure or cannot be measured. Let the outcomes guide the decision for your assessment. Because if you want students to be able to use a circular saw to cut a 2x4, a piece of 2x4, then you know exactly what that assessment should be. Correct? Yes? No? I shouldn't have used woodwork. I shouldn't have used woodwork. Or yes, no?
Yes.
All right. Thanks, Michelle. And assess only what you intend your students to learn. So only assess what you taught. What was the intention behind the whole course? Don't bring in something because you're filling a gap. And this note here, if the task doesn't allow students to demonstrate the intended learning, then
Test what you teach.
yeah. And I could speak a lot about that as a student, yeah. But anyways, we don't have time for that.
Javed, oh yes. We can
Yes,
we know.
So as we on assessment, some of you familiar with this, some of you who are not familiar, I'm going to give you an example of these 3 types of assessment using the chef. So you have 3 types of assessment. Diagnostic assessment. As a chef, the chef will go into the pantry or the market and look for the ingredients, see what ingredients is available. All right. In the classroom now, this is a pretest to know what the students know, to determine what the students know, to see where they are. All right, that's one type of assessment. Then the chef will begin cooking. And while they're cooking the soup or boiling the chana for the doubles, the chef is testing by tasting. That's formative assessment, where you're getting feedback from the students and you're modifying as you go. Is the chana lacking salt? Just some salt. Is the chana lacking shadow benny? I know Dr. Hill don't like shadow benny. Shadow benny, drop some shadow benny in it. You know, things like that. And then you have the summative assessment, where the chef actually serve the meal for the persons to eat. And at that point, the chef doesn't wait until the meal is served to know if to put salt. So you don't wait until the student engage in the summative assessment to know if they need support. Try when designing your courses to ensure that your formative assessment throughout is helping the students achieve success or be successful at the summative assessments as well. We speed in here. All right, I will skip this slide. But formative assessment, I think of it as, I've seen this in the literature as well, assessment for learning. And I remember that because FOR for formative and FOR for summative assessment for learning. And then summative is the assessment of learning, usually at the end, and one is during. Right? Authentic assessments. Now, this is what I will encourage you in designing an effective course to use for your summative assessment. Those authentic assessments, real world tasks. Your course must be aligned to something bigger. We did explain that earlier. It's part of a program, and that program is part of something bigger. All right? And that something bigger could be the standards or the needs of the actual job itself, the sector. So think about your course fitting into the real world and see what students would need to be able to do in the real world with your course. Design authentic assessments to have your students replicate or be immersive in a kind of real world situation. Most times these authentic assessments are like problems that they need to solve within the parameters of the course and the industry, right? It will target real audience and a real purpose. Real. Keep everything real, realistic. All right. Sometimes persons might say, well, it's very difficult. But if you look at the UWI Ideal Graduate, the attributes, communication is there. If you are unable to get the students to do something that is very realistic, like a tacit task that is very realistic because it is difficult for them to do within the context of the teaching and learning, then at its basic level, you can still focus on communication and professional practice. But that should not be the ultimate or the big takeaway from the course, right? So you have ways in which you can still craft authentic assessments. And now, the final thing we want to talk about today would be instructional strategies. And can somebody tell me what they know about instructional strategies? What about Gail? Gail, you still here? Gail, Mary, Mary Lou, Earl, what do you know about instructional strategies? Okay. Okay. I know Mark listening. Mark, what do you know about instructional strategies?
Yeah, brave fella.
Yeah.
All right. The strategies we use or the methods we use to I get the easiest explanation for that. 5 words. To deliver the content in a way that matches the outcome.
All right. Yeah. Taking that. So
Will
after
you
selecting your learning outcomes, sorry?
will you take the approach that is perhaps not instructional, that is experiential as well?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because
Yes.
because it makes it look as though the onus and agency is really on the instructor to do. Although, yes, the instructor guides, but from this standpoint, many of us think it's just about doing something to content related. I don't know if I'm being cryptic here.
No, you're not being cryptic.
Okay.
Because if you look at it, I think as a novice in the field of teaching, and if I see the word instructional strategies, I think I may look at it from that lens, right?
Yes.
And yes, but instructional experiential learning is part of instructional strategies. So, but you see, you really have to understand instructional strategies, and we'll do that. We're going to. So, Dr. Hill going to take us down a philosophical pathway there, but
I would have more or less focused on teaching and learning strategies rather than instructional. So it puts the onus on both parties as well as showing the student-centered approach.
Agree.
But Dr. Hill, isn't it dynamic? Isn't
It
it
is.
diverse?
It is diverse and
So
dynamic.
instructional is not just one approach. It could be
No, it's not.
diverse
Yes.
methods and techniques. And
You're correct.
So yes, so if we use the roti making that roti course outline, an instructional strategy could be you're gonna have to show, make the dough, do something, so I will tell you what is required and so you do a kind of hands-on something. Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
I think it.
Javel, I see Carrie wants to tap in.
Okay, good morning, everyone. When I think of the instructional strategies, I was thinking a lecturer on campus here the other day indicated about TikToks, and I don't even have a TikTok account, but I'm thinking a lot of people learn from different methods, and so whereas we have someone mentioned experiential learning and so on, we have the lecture-based learning, but a lot of I think a lot of technology ones tend to help because you can do the usual videos and podcasts and the TikToks and so on. But one way is to tell the student to have the student respond with a similar TikTok about what they've learned or respond in a like manner and so on. So I find that a lot of technology strategies tend to help form a part of this whole instructional strategy and approach that we talk about, other than the lectures and things like that. I think the technology aspect.
Yeah.
I think my thinking, those words could lead us in all kinds of paths. The word instructional, just looking at it, suggests somebody telling somebody else something. What people are really focusing on is the word strategies. So take away instructional, focus on strategies. Whatever you want to modify that by or qualify it by, suppose we could do that, learning and whatever. But basically, we're talking about strategies. That's what I'm gathering from what Javed is trying to get.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, Roland, you put it really nice. Seeing two raise hand. Go ahead. Mary, I think Mary had her hand up first.
Yes, hi, good morning. Yes, what I wanted to see is where the instructional strategies is concerned, for me, at the end of the day, is what would the students receive.
Exactly.
So as the young lady just talked about TikToks, what if my students are a group of, let's say, more mature persons, where a TikTok, they don't know if that's something to eat or a vitamin. So I think your strategy must marry with what the student would receive the best.
Yeah.
Right? That's my thinking.
Yes, and go ahead, Miss Marvelous.
Yes, I would not separate the instruction from the strategies because it becomes now specific to instruction. So I would keep them both.
Right.
In a nutshell, for me, instructional strategies would be how are we, based on the assessment and the learning outcomes, how are we going to, what strategies are we going to use to fulfill that purpose? And that includes all the other things we have mentioned, experiential learning, workshops, field trips, whatever we use. And so I would not omit the instructional because it is just saying that's the way in which we're going to instruct the students in the different strategies, using the different strategies.
And I appreciate that so much. And you're so right there, because after selecting your learning outcomes and the assessment for your course, we're building a course, you need to think about the various instructional, teaching strategies, student learning strategies or activities that you will use or document in the course design process to engage your students with the materials, the content, and enable them to meet the learning outcomes.
Yes.
Right? Of course, the key thing about instructional strategies, teaching methods, or all those strategies that you all spoke about, the key is to align it with the learning outcomes and the assessment. Don't introduce an experiential learning episode that has nothing to do with the assessment or the learning outcomes.
That's right.
Right? If you do that, you're going to cause confusion for the students. Students will not be meeting the learning outcomes. They will more than likely struggle with the assessment and so on. So you all mentioned everything already regarding instructional strategies. All right. And it's used, people refer to it in different using different terminologies. So here we have that it can increase these 4 things here, but not limited to those. These are some instructional strategies. Lectures do, it really has its place. We're not going to throw it out. And in the document that I shared, you would see you'll see 6, it will take you to a resource, a H5P resource, which speaks to 6 teaching strategies. You see I use the word teaching strategies here. 6 teaching strategies adopted by higher education institutions. So this is specific to higher education. All right? But what is very important when using those strategies, try to engage in active learning. Try to have your students do something that makes them less passive. And if you look at the continuum here, you would see lecture is not so meaningful in terms of getting them involved in deep learning.
Yep.
Whereas as you move along and introduce things like collaborative, cooperative, problem-based, project-based, this is where the deep learning takes place. And those are those really good activities that allow students to connect cognitively or even psychomotor with the learning or the information or the tools or whatever it is you're trying to get them to be able to do at the end.
Javi, could you go back to the 6? What the 6 teaching strategies? Okay, 6. Okay.
So it's in the document.
Post-COVID. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Post-COVID.
Okay.
Right. I'm out of time, so I don't want to spend time going through it. But you have that resource. And somebody mentioned podcasts. I think. I'm not sure, but these are different types as well. It's not limited to what was shown there. So we have podcasts, screencasts, and so on. OERs. And that brings us to the end of today's session. I am out of time. I apologize for taking you beyond the stipulated time, but I thank you so much for attending today's session. I value all the contributions. I did leave a disclaimer at the beginning of the session that I am not the expert in course design. You all have been doing this for quite some time. You know more than me. So I welcome and I appreciate all your contributions. When it comes to using AI, please just try using it for your administrative tasks, at least if you want to begin developing your skill set. You have an email to respond to, let AI improve it. Just see what it comes up with for you. You know, any administrative task, start there if that's the case. You have something you want to design for church, like a flyer, talk to AI. Use the tools, familiarize yourself with it. And when it comes to now designing your course, you would realize that that grappling that you would have to go through is easier now for you. All right, so thank you so much. I hope that you all enjoyed today's session. It was a different session where we have you all engage in the actual activity before the theory. I hope you all appreciated that as well. It's a little different approach, but I think you all participated well and would have taken some things away from today's session. Thank you so much.
I just wanted to say for group one, I placed the document in the chat if you wanted a copy of it. So it's there if you wanted to download it. That's the doubles document.
Doubles. Nice. Yeah. And you have that same document, the AI assisted course design document. Use that document on your own time to practice. Yeah. Thanks, everybody.